And welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harris Areno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley and Kobe Peters. Yes, Kobe is here tonight. Just had to walk the dog real quick. Had to step away for a brief moment right before the show kicked off. Dan, a Sunday evening on the East Coast. A loaded Saturday of college football in the books. That game went just as about as we all expected, Dan. I mean, none of us were absolutely surprised by how that game turned out.
No, and just before I even say anything about that game, this is the first Saturday that I can remember where I was in front of the TV at 10 a.m. for college game day, and I did not watch anything other than college football until midnight. I was uninterrupted. I wasn't asked to do something else. I didn't go to any youth football games. I watched nothing but college football the entire day. And I forgot how stressful a competitive football game is, because I am like, when I watch pretty much any game, I try to watch analytically, but whenever I watch Georgia, I try to shut off all of that and just watch it as a fan. I know you and I differ in that regard. But riding the emotions of that game, and I know everybody said that Tennessee was going to start fast, even though you expected it. When you watch it not in person because I wasn't at the game, but when you watch it happen, that feeling creeps over you like, oh shit, we're in trouble. That first drive Tennessee had, there was zero resistance. It was like that drive was on air. I mean, there was no negatives in that drive for Tennessee. It was just pop, 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 pop in the end zone. You're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Because that happened so fast. Just from a 30,000 view, I have two major takeaways. Is Tennessee's offense is really freaking good, and Georgia's kids are absolutely resilient, just absolutely resilient. And that is my two biggest 30,000-foot takeaways. And I mean, obviously we'll dig into it more than that, but Tennessee's offense really good. Georgia's kids extremely resilient.
Dan, you talked about the opening drive. I've been trying to rack my brain around, trying to think. Outside of Alabama game last year, I don't know if I can think of an opening drive in a Kirby Smart era defense that looked that easy. I mean,
LSU,
everything
maybe?
Joey Aguilar yeah, maybe that's a good shout. Would have been 19 and 18?
Joe Burrow's year, what was that, 2019?
Yeah, 2019.
LSU,
yeah.
the SEC championship game. Is that right?
Yeah. Everything he could have wanted, he got in that opening drive. I mean, everything, like you said, everybody had talked about it. Hey, Tennessee's always played a good first 30 minutes versus Georgia. Can they do it for 60? Can they do it for 4 quarters? Can they match physicality? Can they run the football? Can they hit the deep explosive plays? That was just all over the television, all over the commentary of this game. And as we saw, just like the last few years, they had a good first 30 minutes. But the difference in this game was they also had a pretty solid back 30 minutes of that football game as well. Like, give those kids credit. They played their ass off for 4 quarters, 5 quarters if you count the overtime. They played their absolute ass off. And in the final moments of regulation, when Georgia just hit the 8-point play to London Humphreys and Zachariah Branch, hits the 2-point conversion on the little Chiefs corn dog Super Bowl winning play, Tennessee was taking it to Georgia. They were winning line of scrimmage. They were putting themselves in position to win that game just like they had 2 years before when they knocked off Alabama at home.
Yeah, I think that I think it's a weird game, especially in the extended playoffs, and I think you'll hear that a lot from me in this podcast this season. There are more and more games now in college football that you can walk away feeling good from and come out the loser, which is a weird thing, right? Like back in the day for the SEC East, when it was split East and West, a loss to an in division rival meant you now had to have them lose 2 games on the year for you to then have the ability to jump them back for an SEC championship. Tennessee's season is still 100% in front of them, and they go out. don't drop another one all year. You're playing the SEC championship. If you drop maybe one more, you're probably still a playoff team. And I think, honestly, the way they played on Saturday, you walk away from it a Tennessee fan, you're a playoff caliber team with Joey Aguilar at the helm, and you're better off than you were probably at this point last year in your trade for Joey Aguilar for Nico. And so at that point, like you're saying, I think given the ship stays in the direction it is going, it seems like for Tennessee, they stay healthy. Joey continues to build on more and more experience. I think you come out of this game, yes, the streak continues. You lose your ninth in a row. You're falling behind in the series quickly. But yeah, you had a lot of good positives and moral victories, which makes for a fun college football game. It was competitive till the very end, literally.
And the other thing I would say for Tennessee is, you said if you could stay healthy, I think in Tennessee's case is they need to get healthy. And I mean, obviously, we know Georgia has injuries too. I'm just speaking on the Tennessee perspective. I mean, when you're down your top two corners, and I know the guys that were in the game did a pretty decent job. It's not like they got torched all night long or anything like that. But I mean, if you took away Dalen Everett and Daniel Harris, or it doesn't matter. Just two of the top defenders for Georgia in the secondary. I mean, obviously, we always say next guy up, and Kirby would tell you the same thing too. But I mean, we're also realistic. We know that if you don't have your top two guys in the secondary, it's going to make it a little bit tougher, especially against a good football team. So, and I believe Tennessee was down on the defensive lineman as well. So if they get all those guys back and they're healthy, and like you said, if they can keep that ship pointed in the right direction, which I think they will, I don't think anybody on that team is absolutely defeated, so to speak. I mean, obviously they're going to be disappointed they didn't win the football game, but I came away. I don't hate Tennessee. A lot of people, like they hate Georgia rivals. I like Tennessee. I'm not like that, but you know what I mean. Like I respect the program. I think they do a really good job under Heupel. And I came away from that game like, wow, man, Tennessee's a really good football team. And I would have felt that way, win or lose. Obviously, really, really happy that we won. And to your point where you're saying is you can afford a loss, even when I thought the game was over, old Larry Munson just popped in my head. It was like, I gave up and so did you. There was a moment in that football game where I didn't think, I mean, do you understand? And I know you do, but do you understand the last 5 minutes of the game, how many things had to happen for Georgia to win that football? It's not like two of these things happen, we have a chance. It's like there were so many things that had to happen, like a stack of dominoes had to fall perfectly, and they all did. So I think Kirby even kind of said they got a little bit lucky. I mean, they did, but sometimes better lucky than good, right?
It reminded me of the Ohio State game. And
100%.
big difference between the two. One was played in January when it's a one-game season, and the other was played in September. When you got 10 other games, or 9 games to be played, 7 other conference games to be played. Like, that was the last time that I remember a Georgia game. And I don't want to count Alabama in this because Alabama was, last year was just, frankly, Georgia had no business getting as close as it did to winning that game, considering you're in a 28-point hole after the first quarter. But it was very Ohio State Peach Bowl-esque in terms of Georgia was even early, 7-7. Tennessee takes the lead just like Ohio State did to get a little advantage. Stetson, now Gunner, brings you back, and then you get yourself back into the hole. You kind of turtle a little bit in between the third quarter and the fourth quarter, and then somehow the improbable happens, like Dan said. Miracle, as Munson said. You're in that football game, and you're playing for overtime at the end of this game. I want to go here because we talked about Tennessee, and we talked about the impact of this game long-term for them. Their whole season's ahead of them. We're talking playoffs. We're talking, hey, I know there's some people asking, hey, is Tennessee going to be the team that Georgia could face in Atlanta? Could we see this matchup again? I won't put that off the table. There's still a lot of games to be played, obviously, in the conference to see the pecking order of this conference. But for Georgia, I think the main thing that popped into my mind in those final 5 minutes, Dan, after the sack fumble, when all of us were saying, man, here we go again. This is Sugar Bowl Part 2. This is going to be the 2-score gap that Georgia just can't overcome after the sack fumble. This is probably the difference between if Georgia drops this game. You're sitting here thinking, man, 8-4 seemed a lot more realistic now if they had lost than it did going into the year. Like, this game could be the very difference between Georgia going 11-1 or 9-3. Because if they lose this game, you're looking at the rest of the schedule like, man, you got to play Alabama after a bye week. You got to play Ole Miss at home. You got to go on the road to Auburn. You got to play Texas at home. You got to play who else? Mississippi State in Ole Miss, Mississippi State in a trap game potentially. Like, man, you're looking at the schedule like, man, Georgia's gonna have to get some things together and have some luck go their way.
Yeah, and don't forget Georgia Tech. Now they're looking like a much improved football team as well. I mean,
in game 12,
the Brett Key has got those guys playing really good football right now. Go ahead, Kobe.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's one of those. It's one of those you breathe a sigh of relief, like we're talking about. As far as your season goes, on odds are we're going to sit here and tell you how Georgia's going to be able to win every single one of these football games this year. It's the Georgia podcast. If you're not interested in hearing that, you're listening to the wrong show. But in all reality, no different than, I mean, in the prime years, and I think a lot of people tend to forget, even in the prime years of the Bama dynasty, more of those teams went 11-1 than went 12-0. And I think that to think that Georgia's going to go 12-0 each and every year is not realistic. It's not real. It's a team full of 18 to 22-year-old kids. And to say that we'll drop a game between now and the end of the season, I think is very legitimate. And I think you got away with one today or this weekend that prevents that from being, like you're saying, maybe that 10-2, maybe that 9-3 type season. It may keep alive a 11-1 regular season where you drop a close one to a good opponent, maybe not a great opponent later in the year, if you have some things not fall your way. It also is the kind of win that, kind of like in 2022, where you sneak out of Missouri with a game you had no business winning. It's also the kind of win that kind of jumpstarts undefeated seasons. Like, oh, this should have been your loss. Somehow you've pulled it out of your ass to win. You may not have that struggle again. I think you still will at some point, but it just, like you're saying, it feels like to me, and Harrison, I'm not going to say you're super young because I don't know and whatever, but the one thing for me that it makes me feel better about, and I know Dan's going to feel this way, I know a lot of Georgia fans are going to feel this way. Under Mark Richt, you were on the wrong side of a lot of close football games. Close football games that you were a good team, you played well, you played hard, you fought hard, and you just kind of came up short on a couple of these. And I feel like under the head ball coach now, you have come out on the other side of these more times than not. In games that are tight, in games that are close, that come down to the wire, that come down to maybe one possession, you come out on the right side of them.
I think that's the biggest
ball bounce is going Georgia's way now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between the Kirby era and the Mark Richt era, is that he has his team with the ability to find a way to win games instead of finding a way to lose, so to speak, or just I mean, you just nailed it. Just absolutely nailed it. It just, for whatever reason, and so many times under the Mark Richt era, and I'm not disparaging Mark Richt. I love Mark Richt. I think he's an amazing football coach, even better person, to be completely honest. But it was just always like in those really big, close games, like you said, it just, the ball never bounced our way, and we weren't able to get over the hump. But under Kirby Smart, the thing about it is the games that we lost because we didn't find a way to win are more memorable because there's so few of them, right? It just seems like he just always finds a way to win and convinces those guys that they can find a way to win. And I that's my favorite thing about Georgia right now, is just the resilience of those kids. Even last year, I think we can all agree we were not a fantastic football team last year. I mean, we were good for sure, playoff worthy, but they weren't unbeatable. But the kids were just so damn resilient. They just found a way to win. They don't give up. They just battle and they claw and scratch, and they just keep themselves just with an opportunity to compete. And I think that's just the thing, as a Georgia fan, I take away from it is that I am just so happy to watch a group of kids that don't give up. They just don't give up. I mean, like you said, Kobe, there's probably going to be a point in the season where we don't get it done, right? But it won't be because our kids don't try, and it won't be because our kids don't fight their ass off. We might get beat, but it's not going to be a lack of effort. At least I don't foresee that being the case, and that's something I'm very proud of as a Georgia fan.
Let's jump into some of the narratives and the storylines of this game. Let's start right here. We talked about Joey Aguilar. Let's talk about the guy fighting across from him. Dan, you texted me with something last night that I want you to repeat on the show about your biggest takeaway from Gunnar Stockton's performance. This is a guy, Dan, that came into this game. It was plastered all over graphics. It was plastered all over talk show. It was plastered all over the radio. 5.1 air yards per attempt in 2 games. And everybody, including this show, we were asking, hey, can they unlock the downfield passing game? And we had talked about, hey, there were some chances where they dialed it up and he looked at it, but then went the other way. There were some chances where your pass protection broke down and you didn't get to it. But he comes out here and hits a 45-yard completion right out the gate, first play of the game, and then hit some others throughout that game, like that 4th and 6 play. Dan, I want you to kind of talk about what your biggest takeaway from that game, because I think, honestly, it's one of the best takeaways from this game, and you put it so succinctly when you texted me about it last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple for me, especially coming off of the Stetson Bennett era. It's where Stetson wouldn't play great the entire game. And that's not to say he played bad. And it's not to say Gunnar played bad. But, like, there were missed opportunities. There were some things that maybe just didn't go right exactly, right? But the one thing that he has that Stetson had is that clutch gene. There's no way to quantify it. There's no way to know if somebody has it or not until they actually do it. And it was the first opportunity the Georgia fans got to see it out of him, and you got to see it out of Stetson many, many times where, yeah, even if he wasn't playing great, when he had to play great, he did. And that's what Gunnar did. It just, like I said, there were moments in the game where I was like, gosh, darn it, Gunnar, come on. We got to make that play right there. And then that 4th down throw, and I know it's going to get a lot of attention, and it's very easy to point out. It doesn't make me any kind of genius or anything like that. But just that throw that he made to London Humphreys down the right sideline, on 4th and 7 with the game on the line, the throw itself may not be as difficult as some other throws, but to make that throw in that moment with everything on the line that there was on the line, do you understand the balls it takes to make that throw? And like I asked Harrison in a text, I said, I wonder if the ball was designed to go to him always, or if, to me, it looked like Zachariah Branch kind of expected the ball to come to him. At least that's the kind of the reaction in the moment I got. But the ball goes to London Humphreys, perfectly thrown ball, and give London a lot of credit. He used his body to create a wall between him and the defender and gave just enough room to the outside of the sideline. It's perfectly run and perfectly thrown with everything on the line. And that's why I text you that. I was like, that's the clutch gene. You either have it or you don't. And to make that throw in that moment, and like I said, I've seen guys make more difficult throws, but with what that throw meant, that was a hell of a damn throw. A hell of a damn throw. And an even better catch on the back end. I mean, just everything went perfectly right. And I was like, hey, welcome to the family, Gunnar. I mean, that damn clutch gene just pops.
Yeah, I think that the thing that I told, me and my dad talked for a while last night after the game, and with that throw and just that drive and to go down, and you have to have 8. It's 4th down. Instead of getting the first down, you go touchdown there, which is always just a crazy convenience, right? Like you have to have it, and then instead of just playing for the first down, you go for the full thing and get it. Like you're saying, it just, not to reminisce in years of old and talk about, dynasties or no dynasties, but last night in prime time, including the whole, both commentators that are calling this game, everyone is actively rooting for the Georgia Bulldogs to drop this game, to end the streak to end. I mean, I don't know, maybe people don't pay attention to it as much as I do. Maybe every Georgia fan hears it the whole time like I do and hates it as well. But it's like, you're talking about Joey Aguilar and his travels and how great he is. You're talking about Josh Heupel and how great of a coach he is. You're talking about Tennessee and the resilience of a team they have, how the streak has to come to an end at some point. How are they going to be able to score? How are they going to be able to produce? How will Gunner ever be able to measure up in his first road start? How basically setting up how Tennessee is better suited to win this game, how it's got to be their time, and all of these things that are happening late into the game, and then to basically, with everyone's cheering against you, to drive the length of the field, score a touchdown, and then the thing, like you're saying, is to get the 2-point conversion and go with that. Like, the touchdown is fantastic, but then basically to draw up a good enough 2-point play to tie it. And then, like you're saying, then the luck aspect turns into it. The strategy aspect turns into it. I mean, Tennessee drove the ball into field goal range. The head ball coach is calling timeouts well enough that on the last play from scrimmage, because he's taking the timeouts, they jump, have the false start. Not saying that 5 yards matters or doesn't, but in the head of a kicker, maybe it does. I mean, it definitely kept him from making that kick. So, like you're saying, it feels like 10 years ago when I was a Georgia fan and I was watching Alabama games and I was rooting for somebody to beat them and upset them or whatever, it felt like the opposite was occurring, right? Like, everybody and their brother is going, I want Tennessee to win. And it just couldn't quite happen.
And to add to that point, talking about, I guess, the drive that basically it wasn't quite yet the, hey, Georgia is going to have a chance to win this game, but it was, because that came out obviously after the kick. You're like, holy crap, Georgia's not out of this. Like, Georgia's going to have overtime. But that 9-play, 75-yard drive, which ended with the 28-yard touchdown catch by London Humphreys on 4th and 6. Gunnar Stockton was 6 of 7 on that drive for 57 yards, including the 28-yarder. I think the takeaway for me, and Kobe, I called you a few moments before the show to kind of run this take by you. I think this does to Gunner and Georgia's offense what it did in 23 when you went on the road to Auburn with a first-year starting quarterback in the first real moment of adversity with 100,000 fans screaming on you, and you got to drive down that field, and you got to put the ball in the end zone to win that game. Similar moment, similar stakes, similar opportunities, and similar situations. And they both found the same result. Obviously, Gunner was driving to go tie that game, to give his defense a chance, to give them a chance to go in that game later. But he still put the ball in the end zone. And I think this is where he proved his mettle. He proved that you can trust him as a decision maker to get the ball down the field without turning the ball over. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 throws that you look at and like, ooh, all right, like, that's turnover worthy, but it wasn't a turnover. And you get out of there and you go make a play somewhere else. But at the end of the day, guys, I think you saw what you needed to see from Gunner on that drive alone. And I think Mike Bobo's seen it. I think Kirby's now seen it. Maybe the training wheels come off. Maybe when you got 20 minutes left in the ball game and you're up a score, maybe you won't go ultra conservative. Maybe you won't go run, pass, hoping you can kill more clock. Maybe you'll put it in the hands of 14 to go out there and say, hey, don't turn this thing over, but go win us this game. Go put our foot in their neck and put them to sleep late in this game when you got 20 minutes to play. Oh, no. Oh, no, the mute button did it.
I don't know how I got muted. Oh,
It
well.
wasn't me.
Well, anyway, like I said, that's something that I wanted to see, is that Georgia just kind of – that's one thing we haven't seen this year out of this team. And granted, it's only been 3 games. We haven't had a lot of opportunity. But to see them just put their foot on somebody's throat and put them to sleep, just put them away. We haven't had an opportunity to see that yet, and that's the next step, right? That's the next thing you want to see, is that whenever you start to get that advantage and start riding that momentum, that you're able to just put somebody to sleep. And I think you bring up a good point where he's getting the confidence not only in himself, but everybody else believes in him. Not to say that they didn't before, but when you have a quarterback who's able to do that, it builds right in the locker room. It builds with the guys. It builds the guys in the huddle. And I know they don't huddle that much anymore, but it's one of those things where when the quarterback steps in the huddle, Kobe, you've been in a huddle, and when you're in there and that quarterback is unquestioned leader, and you have ultimate confidence in him, and he comes in there and he's like, "Boys, we're going to go get it." Like, it's hard to explain if you've never been there, but Joe Montana had it. You know, all the greats had it. Like and there's that old story of in the Super Bowl where they had what was it, a 93-yard drive to win the Super Bowl, and the guys were all high key and just hyped up, and Joe Montana steps in the huddle and he goes, "Hey, yeah, John Candy over there. It's pretty cool. Hey guys, we're gonna go win this football game. Let's go." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you have a guy who's that cool, that just and Gunner's got that smirk to him. Like when they talk to him, he's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. You know, like he's got that. And you just imagine that walking into the huddle, he's like, "Hey guys, it's pretty cool, man. We get to go down here and kick somebody's ass. This would be awesome. Come on." I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, guys feed off of that. If you've never been in the huddle, it's hard to explain. But if you've ever been in the huddle and you've got that guy who's just got supreme confidence, and he walks in there and he's just like, "We got it, boys." It just elevates you. And like even now, just talking about it, I've been in there. I've heard that before, and I just got the little tingle going through my body right now just thinking about it. Because if you've ever been there before, if you've ever heard it before, you know what it sounds like when the guy is just supreme confidence, and then he makes you believe. And I'm not trying to blow this out of the water. I'm just saying it's a really cool thing when you have that guy. And I think Gunner took the first step towards being that guy. And like you said, I won't call it training wheels, but I think he's going to get the confidence of coaching staff to let him take a little bit more of a risk and take some chances.
And we won't clip this necessarily because I don't want Miami fans in here killing Dan.
Maybe we'll clip it then.
Yeah, I'll read you out. Gunner Stockton, 23 for 31, 304, 9.8. We'll call it 10-yard average, 2 touchdowns. He also ran the ball 13 times for 38 yards and a touchdown. At Tennessee, at his first start, top 15 opponent that's still ranked in the top 15, mind you. The man we had at the helm last year played against the top 25 opponent also. 23 of 28, 340, 12 yards on the average, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Ran the ball 6 times for 28 yards, including a touchdown. I think that when you look at Carson Beck was fully capable as a quarterback, I think that his tangible skills and build as a quarterback are everything you could want. But I think in the trade, in the swap, in what we lost in him and gained in Gunner, like Dan's saying, is you have the guy that maybe Kirby is more used to coaching, maybe this offensive staff is more used to coaching, that swagger of overflowing confidence that this is a good game plan. We're going to execute this game plan, and if we do so, we're going to put ourselves in a chance to win, and people feed and believe off that. I think the opposite sometimes was the true for Carson, is that he needed people pouring into him the belief of, "Hey, Carson, we're going to be okay." And I think we saw that a lot from the head ball coach, right? Whether it's on the field, whether it's in locker rooms, like after the Florida game. Hey, man, don't beat yourself up too bad. Don't be too hard on yourself. We are going to be okay. And I think that while that's a good thing maybe to keep you humble, in the moment of a game, you can just shock your confidence level so greatly that you don't believe anymore. You don't believe that we can win this game. And the moment you don't believe you can win, I mean, you have no chance at that point. So I think that I think Carson Beck gets a lot of unnecessary hate, and probably from the fan base, from a lot of people. He's a fantastic quarterback, but I think the quarterback we have now is the quarterback that Kirby knows how to feed off of and let this offense feed off of it as well.
Not to continue, because I don't want to spend much time on this because it doesn't matter, but I do think it's a good talking point, just a basis. Does Georgia win this game with Carson Beck at quarterback? With the way that offensive line played, the right side of that offensive line, with how that game kind of went, does Georgia still make enough plays offensively to win that game?
I think that's unfair. I understand why you're asking it, and I'm not saying it's unfair to ask it. I think it's unfair for me to really answer that because I don't think the offensive game plan would have looked the same.
Yeah, yeah,
I,
great point.
it's very difficult for me to say Carson Beck is a talented quarterback. I'm sure they would have had opportunities for him to be successful. So I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not.
at the end of
I
the
don't.
day, Carson Beck wouldn't have been playing DB out there. I mean,
Right, for sure.
Tennessee's still going to score. Things are still going to happen. I don't know that
George has
if we
difference
would have.
makers on the outside now, Kobe. Like that's the biggest thing with like when we talked about this last week in terms of the offense. When you see it at Gunner, it's like at times last week you came away feeling like, man, when you will watch the tape, you're like, man, this is where like this decision that Gunner made. Yes, he picked up 4 yards, but here's the dig, the backside dig, 15-yard play. It's like if George had Carson, that's a 15-yard dig because he's gonna get through his progression and hit it. So yeah, and I do think obviously I, there's a lot of blame and a lot of it's obviously unnecessary and people don't know where to put blame obviously because none of us are in the room. But it was just a question that I think a lot of fans I've seen talking about it on Twitter. So I thought, hey, why not ask it on here? All right. I
The
guess
only thing I'll say in defense of Carson is there are throws that we've seen him make that we haven't seen Gunner make yet, right? So that would be the one thing that I would say, that there are throws that we know Gunner or that Carson can make, but he also risked the ball at times too, and Gunner
yeah.
hasn't really risked the ball, so to speak.
And I think here's the biggest difference. One's a prototypical NFL quarterback. One's like college quarterback. It's a college quarterback. I think we can all see that. And I like how Kobe put it. I think both can be true. I think Miami has the quarterback they need for their team. I think Carson's a great fit in Miami. I think he's gonna have a good year. He's already off to a good year. But I think Gunnar Stockton's a good fit for what Georgia needs right now. I think Georgia needs Gunnar Stockton. Um, Not only just because of the way his teammates look at him and the way he plays on that field, but just so much for just helping out in the run game. Georgia was awful running the football last year. I don't know if Georgia put up how many yards they rushed for this game. 198. I don't know if they rushed for 198 yards in the SEC game last year against this caliber of opponent. I don't know if they did. I'll have to double check on that. Off the top of my head, I would find it hard to believe. Maybe in the SEC championship game, maybe in Austin, maybe we'll see. I'll have to go double check. But Georgia needs Gunnar Stockton's legs to kind of elevate this offense and to make it just a little bit better. Last point, I guess, on the offense. Well, I guess we got two more because we do want to talk about those playmakers. Let's start here. It's the lightning rod. Stetson Bennett left Georgia, and now there's a new lightning rod. As Dan said a few years ago, if you've been around for a while, um, how would you grade Mike Bobo's performance in this game? Because I see it's all over, and I get it. There's going to be the slappy that has hated Mike Bobo ever since 2007 or whenever he got hired here and has never changed. And then there's others who look at it more rationally and say, hey, it wasn't perfect by any means, but hey, I'm going to give it a solid grade. Like he did solid. How would y'all grade Mike Bobo's performance in this game? Because I think we've talked about it on this show before. Uh, when you get into some of these big games, there is that you feel like, hey, there's still plays left to be made. Maybe they got a little bit conservative. Georgia got a little bit conservative in the stretch, down the stretch in that third quarter. Tennessee has some stretches where they got conservative in the third quarter. And I think that's the one criticism that I think all of us can agree on across the spectrum. Like, yeah, you did get conservative. But overall, how would you grade Mike Bobo's performance in this football game?
Well, I'll start it by saying I'll preface this by something that's been said by a couple of different people. Is that if you're the offensive coordinator at Georgia, you're kind of put in a box to where you're not going to be able to do everything you want to do, right? So the part of the game where they got ultra conservative, I don't know if that was Bobo specifically wanting to get, so it's hard to know the truth. Yes, they did get conservative. Yes, I would have liked to seen them continue to run the offense a little bit. The only criticism I have really of Bobo, because he did dial up some winners. And Harrison, you've seen it. When you guys go through the all 22, I know that you'll see there were winners that were not executed correctly. And that's not the offensive coordinator's fault when they're not executed properly. Now, there were some play calls that I was like, man, I don't know why you call that there. But that is so easy to do when you're not there. And that is why I've never been the biggest Bobo fan in the world, because I always felt like in the biggest games with Bobo, when you needed him to be the genius, it just hasn't shown up, whether that be play calling or execution, one or the other, right? With Monken, it always felt like it did, even though when you compare the two of them, they're not very different. And we understand that Bobo is running the things that Monken implemented while he was here. Like, he didn't deviate from that. He didn't go back to the I formation. I mean, if you're watching Georgia, it's the offenses look very similar. He's trying to do the same things. Right before the touchdown pass, right before that, I was like, damn it, I didn't like the screen. And it's not that I don't like the screen in general. It's just I don't know what we were trying to do on that particular one, or maybe they just felt like it was going to hit. I don't know why I didn't like it right there, but who the hell am I? I'm nobody. I'm a friggin' nobody, bro. Like, so like, who am I to question the play call? But I thought Bobo did a really good job. I felt like he dialed up winners. I felt like he put the kids in a position to make a lot of plays. Some were made, some were not made for whatever reason. And sometimes, guys, here's a novel idea. Sometimes you have to tip your cap to the opponent because they did a good freaking job. You did what you were supposed to do, but guess what? They did what they were supposed to do. So maybe sometimes your plays aren't successful because the defense just played a really freaking good play. And I think that's the part that just never comes into the equation when I hear people rip Bobo's ass, is that, he's terrible. He did this and this. So this play didn't work. Maybe it didn't work because the defense did their job. The other guys get paid too. The other coaches on the defensive side for the other team, and those players are really good football players too. Sometimes they make plays. So overall, in any one of the group chats I was in yesterday, I don't think at any point except for the one play where I was like, I didn't like that play call. But I mean, I get it. I get why people don't like Bobo or are going to continue to not like Bobo because it's just the hill that they're on. But I felt like he had a really good game yesterday.
I agree with Dan 100%. I think that if we're putting grades out in any way, shape, or form, I mean, like an A-, maybe even an A on the road. Like saying, you're as much as Gunner is going into his first road start, Bobo is going into his first road start with Gunner. Like, he's having to play this line of, hey, I don't want to put too much on him too quickly. We trust him. We're confident he can run this offense, but we have to – you got to get the man some layups early. And you did. You came out. You took a shot. It was a laser. It was there. It kind of got the ball rolling. You were down 7-0. You have a great answer drive, a great scripted drive. It's 7-7. I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything better on the opening drive than what we did. You go right down the field. It's 7-7. Thank you very much. First half, you took what they gave you. You stayed in the ball game. You scored when you could. I think if you're looking at it, I think the head ball coaches tell you this too. Probably the biggest drive in the second half, and I talked to Harrison about this for a brief minute. Anytime you have the ball first and goal, I think as a top 5 football team, I'm expecting you to score a touchdown and not kick a field goal, especially when you have kicked 2 field goals on the 2 previous drives. I think that I'm all about, like, listen, it happens. They're 18-22. I'm always going to be a believer in that. Like Dan said, sometimes when the field's compressed, things get messy. You kick a pair of field goals, but when you have the ball inside of the 8-yard line, I'm expecting you to dial up 3 winners enough to go get 8 yards to kind of put this game to bed. Because I'm a believer, if you score a touchdown there and don't kick the field goal, you've at least given yourself an opportunity that at the end of the game, when you have to go down and score the 8 to tie, you have an ability to go down the field then to kick a field goal to win. It's a whole different feeling. I would say that's probably the biggest lull in that game, where I felt like, hey, you had to dial something up there that you could have stolen the game earlier. And then to me, we got right back to it. We kicked that field goal. They went down and scored. And it's like we fired up the old burners again, and we were rolling. But it's like you're saying, when you have that chance maybe to put the game to bed, and some of that's on the head ball coach. Like you're saying, he's wanting to burn some time. He's very confident in his defense. We're going to put pressure on the defense because he believes in them. We're going to lean on them from time to time. So, like you're saying, the offense, I mean, they scored 40 freaking points on the road in the SEC.
My favorite thing about aggressive play callers is the KJ Bolden interception. We got the ball right around midfield, right? Wasn't it right around like maybe the opposite 40, but like close to midfield? Spurrier back in the day, Kiffin, all of your aggressive play callers, the very next play is a shot play. I mean, it is we are about to put it on your ass. And that's the one thing that I don't feel like Bobo does. That would be a criticism that I might have is that on
Todd
sudden
Monken
change,
did.
Yeah,
Todd Monken had that in him.
Yeah, I'm like, I know we're supposed to hate Steve Spurrier, but that was the one thing I always loved about Steve Spurrier is if you gave him much of an opportunity to stick it up your throat, or up your backside, whatever, he would do it. And like that's the one thing that I really feel like we're missing right now is that killer instinct to put you to bed. But like I said, I think I said enough about Bobo, but yeah, I think we're all on the same page here.
I think it's B plus at minimum. I mean, because I think the only real criticism are those maybe 3 or 4 drives where you have a chance to put the game away. We have a chance to go up 2 scores and flip the script on them in the second half of that football game. I think that's where the criticism kind of starts and ends. Because other than that, I mean, like y'all said, there were plays to be made there, and sometimes they made them, sometimes they weren't. But for the most part, when you needed it to get done, it got done. Now let's flip the script. Let's talk about the defense. Obviously, you give up 41 points, almost damn near 500 total yards of offense. Dan, where do we start here? Because I think
we have to start with my guy. We have to start with my guy.
Ellis Robinson, you're on duty.
Dan,
I'm calling you to the witness stand.
I know. Listen, I have been the biggest Ellis stan in the world, and it just wasn't a great day for my guy. I mean, the game didn't start great for him. What was it? 2 pass interferences in the first 3 attempts in his direction. Gives up the long touchdown. He's still young. He's incredibly talented. Things are going to happen. You have a quarterback in Joey over there, Aguilar, that he was dialed. Can we say he was dialed in?
I mean, absolutely. 11
Joey
for 11
was dialed in.
Game is awesome.
Yeah. Why did I just blank on his name? Brazel.
Yeah,
Brazel.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it was Brazel the whole time, and then they're like, "Oh, it's Brazel." It's kind of a cool name.
I didn't know that.
Actually. I thought it was but dude had 3 touchdowns, and 2 of the 3 were on my guy. So, like I said, wasn't the best day for him. I will say this though. So many people were hard on Dalen Everett for the longest time, and they didn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but they didn't scratch against Dalen. I mean, did they? I don't remember Dalen getting beat on anything the entire day.
I mean, for the most part, the only thing Dalen gave up were those comebackers, those curls. But yeah, but that really just comes down to how Georgia plays it. Georgia's playing, we're going to defend you deep, and we're going to give you the stuff underneath. Yeah. We're not going to get beat deep.
Let me tell y'all, though.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. That's a good point.
I was just going to say
7-1.
The only reason I say that is because Dalen got so much shit when he was a young corner, and look at him now. So I'm saying, yeah, Ellis didn't have the best day, but look at the progression that we've seen out of these Georgia corners, and that's the point I was trying to get to.
Let me tell you this, and I love that point by you, Dan. It's just it's the growth within the system, right? Like you look at when people talked that about Dalen, he was cornerback 2.
Mm-hmm.
Keeley on the other side, and Keeley was lockdown, right? When did we used to always talk bad about Keeley? When Keeley was cornerback 2, and you had somebody, you had Kamari Lassiter and then you keep going back. When was Lassiter not that great? When Stokes was cornerback 1. It just keeps on feeding itself back and back and back. Stokes and Tyson Campbell used to both be super grabby. When was that? When DeAndre Baker was on the other side. Like it just, it continuously kind of goes that way. People tend to try to pick on the second cornerback a little bit more. And so, yes, there are more opportunities for busted plays, for pass interferences. I thought the pass interference on him was a little soft personally, and that's not
The
even,
second one,
the one that they ended up getting the first down is like 3rd and 13.
yeah, on the sideline.
Yeah. I thought a little soft there. I mean, let them play. It's 3rd and 13. It is what it is.
I thought the case for an OPI on Brazel on the touchdown, the first touchdown. No, it was the second touchdown to Daniel Harris. He got over Daniel. I thought that was a stronger case for OPI there than there was DPI at the one you're talking about.
So, like you're saying, though, I mean, Kirby's going to put those guys out there on islands. They got to get comfortable. That's the hardest thing about being a corner in this defense and the way this defense is schemed up. You have to be comfortable being by yourself because the head ball coach is going to leave you on an island occasionally because he wants to stop the run, right? He is going to load the box on occasion, blitz, and take chances to stop the run to get a big havoc play. And you're going to be by yourself, and you have to be okay with that. And I think the hardest thing for young corners to do is not panic. And I think, I would say, and Kirby will probably tell them, and they will be coached, if in doubt, the college pass interference penalty is 15 yards and you get to play again. And I think that it's something Nick Saban used to coach a lot. It's something Kirby will continue to coach. In that situation, on the home run ball, there is no one behind you. If you're panicked, if you're fully panicked, if you don't think you can get your head around and make a play, tackle that man.
Yes.
And we will live to play the next down. You don't know. They may fumble the ball. You may have a big play, tips and overthrows. You just never know. Tackle that man. Come back to the sideline and say, Coach, I was out of position. I'm sorry, but it wasn't a touchdown. And you'll get coached and told, well, you got to locate the ball. You got to help yourself, whatever. But you cannot just panic and give up the touchdown. I think that's the big thing. And
I said exactly that.
Yes.
Chat. I was like, tackle his ass.
Yeah. And that's part of learning. That's growing and learning.
Case in point, last time I remember Georgia not tackling, Texas game in Austin. You have Texans backed up against their own goal line. They take a deep shot on Dalen Everett with Ryan Wingo. Dalen draws a defensive pass interference early in that football game. 15 yards, free 15 instead of the free 75-yard touchdown or whatever it was going to be. Same drive, just a few plays later, Jalen Walker or Dalen Everett gets the sack, the strip sack. We're talking about 15 yards with a chance to go play another down or 80-yard touchdown with a chance of, hey, now you got to get ready to go play kickoff. We got to figure out what the heck just happened. Those are sometimes the differences in those games that you just talked about in terms of, hey, when in doubt, just bring them to the ground because it's 15 yards from where the ball was last played. It's not 15 yards from the spot of the foul like it is in the NFL. Guys, this is the thing I'm bouncing back and forth on. And I think a lot of what Tennessee did, obviously they had an incredible day. I think Joey Aguilar had probably one of the best games a quarterback has had against Georgia in the last few years since the first national title. I think that's as good as a performance as you've seen from quarterback, particularly in the scenario he was, with it being his first SEC game. He played lights out for them down the stretch and early in that football game in particular. For me, I'm not as worried about Georgia's defense and what they showed. Obviously, the secondary, again, is a question mark. Last year, it was not very good. This year, you're hoping it's better because you have a Daniel Harris with a few starts under his belt. You have an Ellis Robinson who's now starting to get experience and play more. You're hoping one of those guys emerges on the back end. But I think a lot of Tennessee's success just boils down to their scheme just put Georgia in a predicament that it's not going to be put in again on this schedule. Like the only team that plays the closest thing to Tennessee is Mississippi State. It's a similar system. But Mississippi State doesn't have the personnel that Tennessee does, especially in the line of scrimmage, to hold up against Georgia in this type of matchup. But from here on out, it's more traditional offenses, more traditional pro-style offenses, which I think is a reason I'm not quite ready to say, hey, you need to sell stock on Georgia's defense because they just gave up 41 points to Tennessee.
The one thing that I thought Georgia's defense did pretty well is stop the run. The defensive line and the linebackers did a good job of. I mean, yeah, they hit a couple runs, but they didn't gash us all night long or anything like that. I felt like they really held up. The only criticism that I would have for that front is they got a lot of pressure on Aguilar, but they didn't bring him down. And that is one of the things where, especially in an offense that is that explosive, is you've really got to make that quarterback's life a living hell. And they tried, but I mean, obviously, I haven't watched the all 22 or anything like that, but it didn't feel like to me that they were bringing a lot of blitzes. Maybe they were, and they just didn't get home, and that's why I didn't feel that way. But it didn't feel like they were really selling out to get them, and maybe part of that is because they didn't want to give up the deep one, and so they were kind of I don't know exactly. Kobe, you might be well versed on that, and just so much smarter than I am when it comes to defense. I am not a defensive guy. It just felt like maybe they could have just sent more guys, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the little bit I've watched of the all 22. You're right and you're wrong on like it didn't feel that way. I would say a lot of times when we sent the RPO, I mean Joey Aguilar, cap off to this kid. If you're a Tennessee fan, it's part of the reason I think you should be excited going forward. He is the best point guard at quarterback. I think even better than Hendon Hooker, right, for this offense. The man may never play a single snap in pro ball ever, but up to this point in this game, especially in the first half, he saw everything. If we run blitzed, at one point there was a play, it was like a 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 7, and we run blitzed. Both middle linebackers are on full go to stop the run. And he pulls it out of the pocket and throws it to the tight end slipping across the field, and he's wide open. Nobody's within 12 yards of him. Safety is the person that has to make the tackle. It's not that we're not trying to get home in that moment. It's just the fact that he catches you with that RPO. He makes the right decision to pull it, throws an accurate ball, tight end catches it. They have a big play. Same thing kind of happened. I told Harrison, the sacks aren't there. It's because on a lot of the plays, because the RPO is such a problem, you have your outside linebackers, defensive ends, they're setting the point of attack first. They're playing perimeter, like I have to be the outside man of this defense. Oh, he pulled the ball. Now I need to transition to rush the passer. And they're just getting rid of the ball quickly as well. I mean, there were a couple times where the ball's in and out in less than 2.5 seconds. I mean, nobody's getting home unless you're unblocked at that point. So, this offense squeezes you. It's why it's so amazing that we've been so good against it for so many years. For 4 years, you've been the best in the world against this offense. And this year, they just had it dialed. They had the right guy back there throwing the ball and making the right decisions when the bullets are flying. The hope is maybe the next quarterback's not as good. I think that's the big thing. If the quarterback's good enough in this offense, it's going to always be hard to beat.
Well, and they hit their version of layups. They've hit, and it's not really layups. It's like the damn 3-point shot. Nico and even Hendon Hooker in 22, when they played Georgia at home, those 75-yard, those 52-yard touchdown shots that Joey hit were not being hit. They were just out of reach. They were just underthrown. He had pressure in his face. Like, those weren't being hit. And that was really the first time that you saw Tennessee hit a big play on Georgia. That's what Georgia has been so effective at doing, was they were preventing those, and they were making Tennessee play more methodical. And it just boiled down to, hey, you can't run the ball in our box, and now you're going to have to throw it, and we're going to be ready for you to throw it. That's hats off to them. Hats off to Georgia defense on the stops they did do, they did get in that game. I think there's obviously room for growth. I told Toby when we were trying to get his thoughts on what he saw, I feel a little bit better about Georgia secondary, that those guys were in the right position and just didn't make the play at the very end, rather than you just had guys running wide open. Because when you got guys running wide open, like you see all the time in high school, you're like, oh, that's a problem. But at least they're in position. They're close enough in phase to make the play. Gentlemen, real quick before we wrap it up, any national takeaways from the weekend? Anything y'all want to get off your chest about what we watched on the slate from Saturday?
I think the biggest one is Texas A&M got a big win, stole one for Notre Dame. I mean, literally the holder, the ball goes right through his hands, and they lose by a point. South Carolina, they without the quarterback is an average to below average football team. I mean, the moment Lenore Sellers goes out, it looked like they hit a brick wall. Which, I mean, listen, I'm not saying that we would be a above average football team without our starting quarterback either, but let's see. Georgia Tech's legit, I think, would be another good point. Clemson, maybe not so much. The Clemson I heard about all offseason that's a national title contender is 1-2. I'd love to pick
precarious spot on Clemson there. 1-2, no longer the front runners in the ACC. It's FSU and Miami. Flashback to the early 90s or to the 90s. Clemson's back to, well, what they were or being out of that race. Gentlemen, great show tonight. We'll be back live at 7:30 on Sunday. If you like this is our Sunday reaction show. We go an hour on just the Dogs, just that game. We try to sneak in whatever we can time-wise with the national stuff. But if you want full show, not just recap, we give takes, we give prop bets. We will still do the props this week, even though Georgia's on bye week. We do that on Wednesdays, on Wednesdays at live at 7:30 right here on the Top Dog Talk YouTube channel. That's Kobe Pierce. That's Dan Kiley. I'm Harrison Reno. We'll see you back here in just a few days on Wednesday.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.